Hello and welcome back to Sunday Vibes, everybody. We've got a treat for you joining me and Mikey today. We've got Belinder back for more Sunday Vibesing. How are you, Belinder?
I'm good. Excited to be back.
It's a big weekend.
Very big. So honoured to be here with you guys.
Well, yeah, we do have a little bit of a title race special. But before we get into that, Mikey, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Did a good trip to Newcastle yesterday?
Yeah, trip to Newcastle on Tuesday, no, on Wednesday. Days are all merging into one at the moment. Shooting a very fun video that will be on Sky Sports Premier League, Sky Sports Football, at some point in the next 3 weeks, I imagine. So stay tuned for that. May or may not be involving the coaching duo doing something.
Everyone's favourite, Jason
cool.
Tyndall, in attendance. I am not, about to sell you insurance. I am going on TV later, so hence the smart attire. Let us get into the episode, though, because today we'll talk about the factors that can decide this year's title race. It is all everyone can talk about. It's all everyone can think about at the moment, at least if they are me. I mean, there's 2 points at the moment between first and third. Liverpool on 63, City on 62, Arsenal on 61. Given they are top of the table at the moment, Belinder, why don't we start with your beloved Liverpool? How are you feeling ahead of Sunday, and what do you think is the most... We'll do some positives and negative factors, but what are some positive factors that make you think this could be Liverpool's year?
I think the fact that they're going into a run-in and the second tie between Man City and Liverpool is at Anfield. In the years where Liverpool have fallen short by a point or so, the second game's always been at the Etihad, and it's always been so difficult to get a win there. So to have the Anfield crowd going into this fixture after getting the draw away from home, I think that's like the biggest boost they can take. And obviously all the emotion around the game as well. Anfield should be as loud as it's ever been, and hopefully that can sort of translate onto the players and into the coaching staff as well, to set them up to be brave and go out and play in a brave way, which hopefully you would get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you worry about the injury crisis? I mean, it is slightly easing off, but there's still a number of key players out.
Yeah, of course. It's well documented, Liverpool's injuries troubles since the start of the year, really. But at this point, there's no point making excuses before the game is even played. You just have to give it everything. We saw in the Carabao Cup final, even before they go on and get the winner, there was just an immense feeling of pride and how proud everyone felt of what the players on the pitch just could give. So at this stage, if they can give a performance like that, just so we could all walk off feeling proud. If a win comes of that, then great. But we can only hope.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do have an incredible record against City at Anfield. I mean, before we get into the title race, it's maybe worth just expanding a little bit on this game, because I think you've only lost to them once in the league at Anfield since 2003, which was in 2021, which is a pretty crazy record.
Yeah.
De Bruyne, for example, has never won at Anfield, which is quite an achievement. Keeping him quiet, or at least keeping him from being on the winning side. And you've lost one of your last 55 league games at Anfield, which is incredible. I think it was you racked up about 60 a few years ago as well. Like Anfield under Klopp has just been insanely consistent.
Was that 1 in 55? Was that with no fans as well?
I think it might well have been. I mean, there was that slightly weird period a few years ago when you had that huge injury crisis where you lost loads of games at Anfield all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But since then, I think it's just been incredibly consistent. For City going into this as well, I mean, we might as well touch on injuries, because it is quite a key factor in all these three teams. City have had injuries this season. Like De Bruyne's only started 10 league games. I think John Stones has started fewer than that. Haaland's missed a couple of games here or there. But at the moment, they have the cleanest bill of health out of anyone. I think only Grealish is injured and unavailable for Sunday, which, compared to Liverpool, who have been remarkably consistent given those injuries, and Arsenal as well, this incredible run of form without a sort of recognised left back on the pitch. Partey's not really been able to play a part, for example. Gabriel Jesus has missed a number of games as well. There are bigger injury issues at Liverpool and Arsenal than City, and it just feels like with 20 games unbeaten now in all competitions for City, going for a second consecutive treble, I don't know. I think the biggest factor for City is the belief that they have. 6 of the last 7 titles, going for 4 in a row, an unprecedented 4 in a row in the Premier League. That just gives you so much belief. There are so many winners in that squad, whereas a lot of Liverpool's side from 1920 has now moved on. There are still some, players that are still there, and Arsenal just don't have the record at Arsenal, at least. There's an FA Cup there. Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, they've won Premier Leagues, but those core Premier Leagues, core players, Saka, Odegaard, Rice, they haven't done it at Arsenal just yet. So that is, I think, a big factor. I mean, Mikey, let's bring you in on this.
Yeah.
Arsenal are the form team, probably.
They are. I mean, it's hard not to look at the last month or so and say that Arsenal are not clearly the best team in the league. Like I think they are the best team in the league right now. I feel like I said that a lot, and I also said that doesn't mean they're going to win the league, because it doesn't mean they're going to win the league. But I think they are the best team in the league, and I think they are playing the best football that we've seen. Probably since the 2000s. Like I think they are at their best that they've been under Arteta. I know that the start of the 22-23 season was electric, but now it just feels more sustainable. It feels like they are putting games to bed really, really early. And we talk about injuries. Like, okay, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here in terms of the team that I'm bigging up on this episode, the team that I'm focusing on. Because,
I should clarify that. We've all picked a team.
Yeah.
Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal.
Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're backing them to win, but we are kind of dissecting them. Case. And I think, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because who knows, Arsenal may have, that run may have come to an end at home to Brentford yesterday. I suspect it won't have. And they'll have beaten Brentford as you're watching this, but who knows? Like, stranger things have happened. And if there is one time and I hate the term, for Arsenal to bottle it, it would be like on the eve of Liverpool and City going ahead, because obviously if Arsenal have beaten Brentford, then they will be top as you're watching this, and it will take one of the two team, Liverpool or Man City, winning for them not to be top by the end of the weekend, given that their goal difference is so good. And I think this is something that we need to speak about. Like, it's such a tight title race. There's only 2 points in it. Arsenal are 10 goals better off goal difference wise than Man City. They are 6 goals better off from Liverpool. With 11 games remaining, I suspect that Liverpool could feasibly catch up with that. As good as Man City are, I do not see them catching back up with that. I think Arsenal end this season with a better goal difference than Man City. So if it does come down to goal difference, then between Arsenal and Man City, wherever they are in the table, whether that be going for the title or second and third, then Arsenal will finish above them. That's that is my hunch. As for injuries, you bring that up, Dukes, but it potentially, this weekend, I know Arsenal do have a lot of players who are doubts, as this is going out, as we're approaching the Brentford game, but everyone, it's possible that at this moment in time when you're watching this, Jurriën Timber is the only Arsenal player out. Like, Arsenal's bill of health actually is pretty good, and I know there was the Martinelli cut on his foot, but that's a short-term thing. Yes, Saka was ill in the week, but again, should be a short-term thing. I think Arsenal are in a pretty strong position, and I think it's hard to argue against City because they just have this incredible record. And it's hard to argue against Liverpool as well, because they have sustained really good form with an injury crisis, and a lot of key players will be back in the next few weeks, aside from, I guess, Alisson and Jota, who are due back mid-April at the earliest. So that is a bit of a worry. But I would say in general, although like this, I don't think this title race will necessarily be decided by logic, because it's so tight, and we're talking about Jurgen Klopp's last few months and everything. There's so many variables in the air. There's so much kind of mad stuff that could happen between now and then. But if we're looking at it logically, I think Arsenal are probably in a stronger position right now than a team like Liverpool, where there's just like Jurgen Klopp is having to deal with a bit of an injury crisis, and Liverpool are winning late in games. Things like factors like this, and I think that's the main difference with Arsenal. It's like this time last year, Arsenal were winning, beating mediocre opposition late in games, and there was this kind of magic around the Emirates and everything.
Villa, I remember.
But that's tiring. That's like that. Yeah, that's really tiring. Like, Arsenal at the moment are, like, they're winning games by half time. Like, I mean, if we look back at the last 7 games, there's so many records that they've broken. Like, this is the best start to a calendar year by any club. Like, Arsenal's goal scoring record at the moment over the last 7 games, I think, is the best I think it's the best stretch. Oh no, that was it before the Newcastle game when Joe Willock got that consolation goal late on. Arsenal had scored 17 times and not conceded once in that time. No team has ever done that in Premier League history. And yeah, out of the 7 wins that they've had on the bounce, up until Brentford, of course, 4 of those games they scored 5 or more in. Like, it is insane. So that ability to get games to bed early, which, we were, before Christmas was a bit of a problem. Their finishing and everything, a lot of their players are outperforming XG at the moment. They've had 11 different scorers in the last 7 games alone. I'm trying to think of the point I'm trying to make here. Oh yeah, basically, Liverpool are having to rely on like last minute winners. Obviously, that 120 minutes in the Carabao Cup final would have taken it out of them. Like going to the death at Nottingham Forest will have taken it out of them a bit. Not to mention the fact that Liverpool's style of play is a more physically demanding style of play, because they're, I think they're basically the number 1 counter-attacking team in the Premier League. I think they rank 4th for direct attacks. Arsenal rank far lower. And if you don't know what direct attacks is, it's basically the speed at which. Oh no, sorry, the speed at which you attack. So direct speed and attack. Sorry, it's the wrong stat. So for direct speed, Liverpool are basically attacking at far bigger pace. And covering far much more ground. Then especially Arsenal and Man City as well. And even when you look at Man City, it's like, yes, they were absolutely dominant against Man United, but they weren't ahead in that game until the 80th minute. They were behind in that game until whenever Phil Foden, I forget when Phil Foden scored the equaliser. Was it 55 minutes, 60 minutes? Like, they were having to mentally they were having to still work quite hard in that game. And yes, Arsenal have had relatively easy fixtures recently, but I
was going to say, because Brentford this weekend will be their 5th in their last 8 that have ranked 14th or below, I think.
But then even considering that, they still have marginally the easiest fixtures for the rest of the campaign.
Do you think?
Well, they do. Statistically, they do. They play more.
Some of their games, I think they're very difficult.
They play more bottom half teams than Liverpool and City. They play more. I think Liverpool and Arsenal play more home fixtures than Man City. I think on average, in terms of points won by opposition that they're facing, Arsenal have the easiest run in. Of course, if Man City go out and win today, because I think that Man City technically have the hardest fixtures, because they have Liverpool, Arsenal and Aston Villa all in the next 3 games. If City go out and win win today, then maybe that those fixtures open up a little bit, statistically at least. Same with Liverpool, because they are playing one of the 2 best teams later today in the league. But so obviously there's a lot they can have here. But at this moment in time, I think Arsenal are actually in a really advantageous position. And we put a poll out earlier this week, and people are still very much backing City or Liverpool to win the title. I think marginally Liverpool in terms of our polling, and I think I would maybe put that down slightly to the fact that there are just more Liverpool fans online. I think it's quite even, probably, if you're looking at what neutrals are saying in that poll.
But Arsenal are poll FC.
But Arsenal are pole FC, and yet they still rank quite low, which, it does puzzle me a little bit, because it's
because there was always that joke that they was used to take over any Twitter vote ever.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, I don't think it's quite the same way anymore. I even see AFTV polls sometimes, and then they're more reasonable than I expect. But I think people are still slightly sleeping on Arsenal. There's something about the fact that they lost the league last year. They haven't been involved in that many title races under Arteta, but I just think the way that their season has gone is really, really promising. They are. If Man City were doing what Arsenal are doing now, we would just say, Man City are definitely going to win the league, even if the title race was as tight as this. Yes, City are on a great run, but and we expect them to really start blowing teams away in the next couple of months and really really bulldozer teams.
But they haven't been
really. They haven't. They're still getting the results, but it's just if it was Arsenal playing getting the results in the way that City are at the moment, and City were playing like Arsenal are, we would have. I think we'd unanimously say that City are going to win the league. But because it's Arsenal doing that, and just because they haven't done it, they haven't won the league before in this era. We're a little bit more hesitant, and that's fine. That's fine. But I think they've got a much better shout than a lot of people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, City prior to the game against United only scored 1 goal in their previous 3 games, and then United at the Etihad, it's not necessarily a particularly happy hunting ground for them. Belinda, let's bring you in on. I mean, it seems like a stupid question, but amongst the Liverpool fan base, is there now a little bit more fear about Arsenal, or are people just they've been so damaged by previous defeats to Man City that actually they still feel like the overarching enemy?
Yeah, I think it's one of them where, as I think Liverpool fans, you've gone so deep in so many title races and got so many points and still always falling short into Man City. They're always going to be in the back of your mind because you know what they're capable of. You know they can stick a run together of how many games and just keep winning and winning and winning. And they've proven it time and time again, whereas it's the fact that Arsenal are that unknown quantity, like you said. You don't know how good they can be. You don't know how they can deal with adversity. You don't know how they can deal with maybe going deep in the Champions League and how that might affect them. So there's just too many unknowns of Arsenal in terms of like having to worry about them. And I think Liverpool would just stick to just trying to do what they need to do because they're first. They are top. They've got through everything, despite all the injuries, despite all the adversity they've faced. They are top, and that resilience that they've shown so far, they know that will take them far in this title race. I don't know if that's enough to win it, but it's enough for them to believe that we'll be in it until the end. We'll take it to the last day. That's what we always do. Yeah. And like I said, they're top at the moment, and if they get a win against Man City at Anfield and give themselves that little bit of bumper as well, that's just the spur you need to take you into this run-in where the tough fixtures come in are probably Goodison away and Old Trafford away. But
Villa away as well.
Yeah, and Villa away.
I think penultimate game of the season.
It's one of them where I don't think anyone is trying to discredit Arsenal. Of course not. The goals they're scoring are frightening, but equally, there's no point being bothered about what someone two places below you is doing at the moment.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, let's talk about some of the key players for Liverpool then, because I mean, Darwin Nuñez deserves, I think, enormous credit for the way he's not carried your attack, because Jota had that amazing spell as well. But without Salah being so regular this season due to injury, Nuñez deserves huge credit.
So I think there's 5 main players in this Liverpool squad who they were sort of part of the main Klopp group that was successful a few years ago, and that's Mohamed Salah, that's Virgil van Dijk, that's Alisson Becker, that's Trent Alexander-Arnold, and that's Andrew Robertson. They're the 5 who were key then and who are arguably 5 starters now.
The pillars.
4 of those 5 have been missing for large parts of this season so far, and in their absence, you had Robertson out and Gomez is fielding at left back, and Tsimikas before him stepped up. Trent's out, you had Gomez fiddling at right back, and now obviously Conor Bradley, who just looks like a little superstar. Salah was out, and he was the one I was worried about, because it was like, okay, you're missing Salah or you're missing Trent. You're now missing your top goal scorer and your best creator. That's a worry. But in his absence, Darwin Nuñez has stepped up. Jota obviously had that great period before his big injury where he stepped up, and even Luis Diaz stepped up. I think I counted he got in the first half of the season, the entire first half of the season, he only got 3 goals and 1 assist. Since the January alone, he's got 7 goals and assists this season in the league. So he stepped up immensely as well in terms of just getting important goals. Yeah. So those 3 alone have stepped up, and now he's back. I think that's another important factor, having Salah back, having just a big player, big mental player in that dressing room who can lead from attack, and he's, in terms of mentality of going into a title run and needing someone to be consistent. There's maybe a golden boot race as well going on there. Obviously Haaland's a few ahead of him now, but I think he averages between 19 and 23 goals a season, bar that freak season Salah had where he broke the record, or at the time broke the record. So he's due another 6-7 goals in this run-in at least. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it is worth noting just how much better Liverpool are than they were this time last year, given the change in the summer. We've talked about this all season long, but the summer business, most people thought, it's a slightly transitional year. I mean, I put my hands up. I didn't even think they were guaranteed to finish in the top 4. Egg on my face massively. But I think it did slightly reflect the feeling at the start of the season that they hadn't got their summer business necessarily all finished in defensive midfield at least. So to be in this position, to be 21 points better off than at this stage last year, with 11 games to go, is pretty remarkable.
Huge.
And
I think even Klopp
huge credit to them.
Yeah, sorry. I think Klopp even said at the start of the season, I thought it was possible, but I think Klopp probably always thinks it's possible, obviously. But I think it even surprised him. I don't think he he certainly didn't expect Liverpool to be in this position right now. I think it was always seen to be a trend, and it's interesting whether that's played into his thinking about Actually, I suspect it doesn't. It doesn't actually, because he left Dortmund after a difficult season. So I won't make that point. But there certainly would be speculation as to whether Klopp would have actually left at the end of this year, or actually at the end of this contract,
if he was sort of fifth, sixth,
if he was in fifth, sixth, because it is that temptation to leave on a high, even if they don't win the league. But the Europa League, they have to be favourites alongside Leverkusen, haven't they? They've obviously already won the Carabao. They're in the FA Cup as well.
I think that Carabao win's massive actually, because
it's huge.
In his final year, it already gives him just that. I've already got one trophy in the bag, and it kind of relaxes the whole team as well. It should relax the whole team,
and to win it in that manner as well, to come through against that Chelsea side, which played a great game but have been disappointing this season, to do it with the kind of players that they had on the pitch, do so with your captain scoring the winner like that, it is remarkable. But I think that's one thing again where I worry a little bit about Liverpool. Is that, and where again I'll bring it back to Arsenal briefly.
No, go for it.
Liverpool will go deep in the Europa League. I think Liverpool will at least make the semi-finals. I back them to win the whole thing. The second leg of their semi-final would be due to take place 3 days before the second to last game of the season, which is that Villa away. Villa may well still be going for a top 4 spot at that point.
They may be going for a Conference League title.
Maybe going for Conference League titles, to be fair, as well. So yeah, they might be tired as well, but nevertheless, that's a big game to go to Villa Park, which will probably be at its most electric if they are still going for top 4 at that point. That's it's just a tough fixture list, that, and if they're still in the FA Cup, if they go all the way in the FA Cup as well. Arsenal do have just a fewer games to play, and on top of that, out of all these 3 teams, I just don't back Arsenal to go as far in Europe as Man City and Liverpool.
It's not what I see from Arsenal fans online.
It's not, but
I want semi-final minimum.
They do, but even then, I think City will make the final. I just think Arsenal, if they get given a tough draw in the quarterfinals, it could not happen, and I think we like to talk about momentum a lot. I generally think it's great to have momentum, but at the same time, it's a long season, and Liverpool, with their injury problems so far as well, if they're playing so much, and also let's remember, I don't think, in some ways, I feel like winning the Premier League isn't as big. I don't know, actually. I think Arsenal are more focused on winning, on really focusing on the Premier League this season, whereas I think Liverpool are fighting on so many fronts, and there's so much emotion with every cup tie and everything, and it's all about the magic, and it's I think if you, I don't know actually, Belinder, you're a Liverpool fan here, so I'll ask you, what would you prefer Liverpool winning the league, but kind of going out pretty meagerly to say Liverpool winning the league, but you go out it's not going to happen, but you go out in quite meagre fashion to Man United in the FA Cup quarterfinals. Europa League ends up being a bit disappointing, but you win the league, or you just missed out on the league, but you have a fairy tale Europa League run where you come back from 3-0 down to beat Bayer Leverkusen in the semi-final. You absolutely spank Man United in the FA Cup. In the FA Cup, which again, that's at Old Trafford as well, which is Jurgen Klopp's last visit to Old Trafford in the FA Cup quarterfinals. What do you take there? Because I think I feel from Jurgen Klopp's standpoint, maybe you take the latter. I don't know.
I think from a professional standpoint, you would take of just taking every competition seriously.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, obviously winning the Premier League is the main one, especially because when we did win it, there was no fans in, and the fact that I think they've already kind of semi-announced there's going to be some sort of parade at the end of the season to say goodbye to Klopp. It'll have the Carabao Cup trophy there now, to have the Premier League there as well. That would just be so special to thank the man who brought the one thing back to Anfield that so many came, tried and failed to do for 30 years. That would be the most special. But I think with the Europa League, it would take some luck, like you said, with the injuries and stuff, but it can work, just because as long as Liverpool get a tie where they've got the second leg at Anfield, anything can happen in that first leg, and I back them to turn it around. You
Yeah.
know, worst case scenario, they lose a first leg, maybe 3-0 or something. Okay, Liverpool can score 3 or 4 goals at Anfield against nearly anyone, especially the Europa League teams. Bar maybe like Leverkusen, maybe Sporting as well. They're so much better than a lot of the teams in that competition.
Yeah.
So.
But surely you want the opposite of that though, really. Like if you want that team to be really fresh for those weekend games, surely you want like those ties to be pretty much settled in the first leg,
But either
so
way,
you can then rest players.
Either way, it's the Thursday, then weekend turnaround.
Yeah.
So what's harder, like playing away Thursday, being knackered?
Oh right,
and then,
for sure, yeah.
So I'm
yeah.
like my logic is throw the like if the first leg's away, throw it away from home, and then just finish it in the second. Because then you've even got extra time potentially as well at Anfield. Which
Liverpool style
again,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
2016-17,
which takes it out of
style.
you. I guess the point there is just that, like, I guess it comes back to fitness. It's just like Liverpool's squad is just a bit more threadbare, and it's like, I guess like they've done well so far. Like we've done really, really well so far, but like how much can we back Liverpool? You know, to be fair, like most people will be back after the international break, but I guess you've got Man City this weekend, Man United in the FA Cup the following weekend. First of all, like hope that like no other key players get injured in those games. But like I feel like I feel like for Klopp, like he must be looking at the clock, being like, I need my top players back like ASAP, because there's only
running as well.
There's only so many games longer I think this Liverpool team can go without, you know, dropping a point or so. I know like the Man City game, it's, you know, it's Man City, so you can't look
big
too far into
layoffs
that
as well, and you kind of need them to hit the ground running for all these big games.
And to be fair, like Kelleher's stepped up like in Alisson's
Massively.
absence, and Alisson actually hasn't had, you know, he's had nowhere near the season that he had last year in terms
Still
of like the
great,
goals
though,
that he saved. He's still brilliant, and he's obviously a huge figure. But I just think, I feel like that there's only so much longer Liverpool can sustain this with such a threadbare squad, as well as they've done.
Credit to Van Dijk as well.
Amazing season.
I think he's... 18-19 was maybe more standout individually, but I actually think with everything thrown at him this year, it might be almost as impressive. And look, you've got to see where Liverpool end up this year.
Yeah.
But it might top it in terms of not necessarily individual performances, like he won't finish second in the Ballon d'Or, but to hold
I think he has to be in the conversation for Player of the Season, like PFA Player of the Year.
100%.
Sure.
There's so many in the conversation though. It's a really interesting year for it. There's no necessarily outstanding candidate.
Because you don't suspect that Haaland's going to get it this time. Just because I guess he set such a big bar for himself last year.
I mean, I even put it on Twitter this week. I think if Villa finished in the top 4 and Watkins continues his form, like he's got to be in the conversation as well.
100%.
Rice, Saka, Foden. Let's get on to some City players as well, just to bring you guys back down to earth, because you know, be afraid. De Bruyne has come back and is averaging a goal involvement every 53 minutes. He's got 2 goals and 10 assists in 11 games. Talk about hitting the ground running after a big layoff. Absolutely superb. Foden as well, playing, I think, probably the best football of his career right now. I think he's been absolutely sensational. Already most appearances in the Premier League season for him. Most goal contributions as well. 11 goals, 7 assists. Absolutely remarkable. He's 3rd for chances created from open play behind Odegaard and Bruno Fernandes. He's 4th for shots. He's just at the top of his game, and you can put him anywhere in that City side now, and really in any kind of game, and he just makes impact at some stage during the game. And then Haaland, he has not been at it in terms of his finishing. Like, his chance conversion rate is down almost 20%, I think, and his big chance conversion rate is down drastically as well. But his underlying numbers, his shots have gone up, his expected goals are still there, and you just back him to at one stage go on a massive hot streak. And at the moment, he's actually kind of in one already. He's got 8 goals in his last 5 games. I know, admittedly, 5 of them came in one game against Luton, but still, Haaland will, I think, get better as the season progresses, especially with De Bruyne now back fully fit, especially with Foden in this form, with Alvarez still able to come off the bench and impact games. Doku, I think, has had a really quietly excellent debut campaign in Manchester as well. Haaland could go on a run, and that could kind of be the league table sort of done. If he scores 13 goals in the final 11 games, which is really quite possible, I think it's very difficult for anyone to topple City at that stage. And the thing that worries me a little bit about City is that I think they've left themselves quite a lot to do this season by their summer business. I don't think they necessarily got it right, which is not actually the first time you can say that about City. Everyone thinks they get every transfer spot on. I don't think that's necessarily the case. And last summer, I think with Gundogan leaving, with Mahrez leaving, with Cole Palmer leaving, And then the signings of Nuñez and Kovacic, I don't think have really worked out. I think they were two similar players. And yeah, neither have had the impact you'd really expect. I think Gvardiol's looked really solid, to be fair, and I think Doku's had a really good impact when he's played as well. But in the engine room, Gundogan leaving has just left Rodri so much to do in there as well. And Bernardo Silva's maybe been a little bit quieter than previous seasons as well. So City, it's going to be really, really interesting. I think the run-in really helps for City. I mean, they've got Wolves, West Ham and Fulham in their final 3 games. They've got unbelievable records against West Ham and Fulham. Wolves less so. I think they've got 3 defeats in their last, something like 8-9 against Wolves, but all of those, except for 1, have come at Molineux as well. So the run-in for City, I think when they get through this patch in the next month of Liverpool, Newcastle in the FA Cup, Arsenal, that's a huge march. But then I do think it slightly opens up for City if they're in contention. I don't know. Oh, it's so difficult. I mean, Belinder, do you have any other factors you want to throw into the ring for Liverpool? Anything that we haven't really covered yet?
The one that I'm going to hype up, because it's probably the one that people will try and bash me the most for in the comments, and it's just the Klopp factor. The fact he's leaving. It does, because honestly, like, there's a lot of players on that pitch now in red who owe a lot and owe their careers to one man, that's Jurgen Klopp, and they need to now go out in this run, and they've got an opportunity to say thank you. And they've really got to go out there and just give everything. And like, that's an unquantifiable sort of factor of how much motivation that can give to a group of players, and how that can just push them to their absolute limits. Like I mentioned the crowd earlier, and like, I know that from the moment Klopp announced he was leaving, every game at Anfield from that point up until the end of the season, it just feels like a privilege to have your bum on a seat in that stadium, to be there for one of his fist bumps at the end of a match. Like, that's special. And so it's like every game, you know, you're at Anfield especially, you know, you're playing to win, so you get that moment at the end to celebrate, and that will make Anfield in this run-in a fortress, like we've already mentioned. But like I said, I hope it's with the effect that it has on the players on the pitch as well. And the only drawback though potentially of that is how that motivates Pep Guardiola and his side, because obviously I don't think there's any personal beef between Pep and Klopp, but there's definitely a professional rivalry, and I'm sure he'll want to spoil the party. There's players in that group as well, like Bernardo Silva, who's tweeted about Liverpool a few times, and
Klopp's beaten him more than any other manager.
Yep, and I think John Stones even said in an interview this week that you can't have Liverpool winning a quadruple, not the quadruple, but a quadruple. So you know, there's a professional motivation from them as well to not let, because they know how to win, and they know what it takes to win, and they'll just want to do it again just because they can.
Absolutely. I mean, McCubbs, any final factors about Arsenal before we get into some predictions?
I guess with Arsenal, you spoke about Haaland, you speak about Salah. I guess with Arsenal, there's not the consistent goal scorer. I
don't know. Saka's been pretty good.
Saka is, but there's not necessarily the consistent score. He has been brilliant. But there's, aside from Saka, and also it's more just that Saka, it's only in the last 2 seasons that Saka's really been a top goal scorer, and last year he wasn't even. I guess the point I'm making is Martinelli and Odegaard scored 15 goals apiece in the Premier League last year. They got 12 between them so far this season. Like, that's, you know, that they are way down on where they were last year. They both scored 9 fewer each. Obviously, at the end of the season, there's 11 games to go, but and they've both clicked into gear a lot more recently, especially Odegaard, like, playing his best football once again. Like, but Arsenal's, you know, the lack of a focal point, I guess, in that attack. You know, someone who could maybe get them over the line in a game in which they're struggling to win. Like, I know Saka has done that, especially in the last, 7 goals in his last 7 games. He's on an absolute tear. Like, I think Saka's only 4 goal involvements away from matching last year's total. He's averaging a goal or an assist more often than Vinicius Junior this year, more often than Leroy Sané this year, way more often than Phil Foden this year. And I think, even like in the Champions League, like, only Bellingham, Kane and Galeno have got more goal involvements than him. So he has been world class across the board this year. But Bukayo Saka, like, clearly, anyone who's, still doubting that is, I don't understand. So, like, yeah, definitely big up Saka, but I guess, like, he has been relied upon a lot in that attack, and probably won't get injured because he's got a great fitness record. But I think that would maybe be where Arsenal could fall short, is that if there is an injury to a key attacker and they're unable to compensate for that, then that could be maybe their undoing. Because I think every other element of Arsenal's been great. I mean they've actually produced more expected goals than Man City this year. Liverpool are the only ones who are topping them so far this season. Their defensive record is by far the best in the league, and that's even with David Raya actually underperforming on post-shot expected goals. So, like, I generally tend to think that Van Dijk and Konate are probably certainly my favourite centre-back pairing in world football. But actually, Saliba and Gabriel, and whoever tends to be playing on the left, whoever tends to be playing on the right. I mean, it's been Ben White recently. Like, they are like clearly they are the best defence in the league. They are the best defence in the league, and that's with Declan Rice like in front of them, who is still contributing to the attack as well, and is putting up amazing defensive numbers. Like, and even like look at someone like Kai Havertz, who has scored 7 goals this season, got 3 assists. He's their second top scorer in the league, and his defensive numbers have really popped this year as well. Like, defensively, Arsenal are an absolute powerhouse, and I think that is. And they were defensively great last year up to a point, but I just, at this moment in time, like they look quite unbreachable. And I think that is, like, having gone from like their attack maybe like faltering, potentially, and that being their undoing, like their defence, I don't see really letting up between now and the end of the year. So I think that would be, I think that's their biggest advantage there. Whereas like Man City, as great as they are, have looked vulnerable defensively, and everything points to the eye test points towards it. All the stats point towards it. They are not as good as last year defensively. They just aren't. Like Liverpool, like Van Dijk and Konate, amazing, but like as we saw in the Carabao Cup final, like it really did take Konate and his recovery pace and his just individual brilliance to stop Chelsea from scoring. Really, like. Arsenal do not let teams in behind in the way that Man City and Liverpool do. And if we're going on an individual game by individual game basis, I like that suggests that they are going to be less troubled between now and the end of the season. So I think that's where they have the biggest advantage. Okay,
the big question, guys. Does anyone want to change their suggestion of who could win the league?
Well, the thing is,
have you researched yourself into thinking it's Arsenal?
Well, I've kind of have, but no, I just think Arsenal.
You made very good points.
Yeah.
I just think Arsenal have a really, really good shout, and I think I wouldn't be. Thing is, I wouldn't be that surprised if any of these teams.
Well,
won the league
I was going to make that point. There's good arguments for everyone.
It's just so. I mean, it's so tight. Like, I think
we refrain from saying that anyone bottled it. If anyone, I do want to get this. What happens the next?
I do want to get this in. Actually, another thing though, but Arsenal did have the opportunity to score 10 at Sheffield United the other day, and they did bottle it.
They bottled the 10.
They bottled the 10-0. That would have been a Premier League record, and they bottled it. They were 5-0 up at they 6-0 up? No, they weren't 6-0 up at half time. 5-0 up at half time. They were 4-0 up at like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Mikey,
not very happy with
dodge the question though.
I'm not going to dodge the question.
Arsenal going to win the league?
Thing is, I'm not going to change my mind from what I've been saying for the last month or two. At this point, I have been saying Liverpool, the Klopp stuff. The Klopp factor does, there's, like I was saying earlier, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a logical conclusion to this season. And like you were saying, I guess the magic of Klopp at Anfield and everything. Equally, it could be like a great tragedy, couldn't it? Like Klopp leaving and just falling short at the final hurdle, but. There is just
a lot of heartbreak in his career.
He has a lot of success, but I just do think I just think there is something about this Liverpool side and this season, and I guess just the way in which they can batter teams. I'm going to say that for now, but I think this is. Like, in terms of a prediction, like staying true to kind of what I was thinking kind of, I guess, a month ago or whatever, and staying with that hunch, like that could change depending on what happens at Anfield today. I think if Man City were to win at Anfield, if they were to then beat Arsenal and Aston Villa, then I think it's theirs. But
for now,
I back Liverpool to win today. I still back Liverpool to win today, and if that happens, then I think they have a very strong shout. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal won the league. They're really, really good, and that goal difference will be a factor come the end of the season if it's close.
Belinda?
Yeah, similar to Macabre's, mine's sort of whatever happens in this game at Anfield is what I think decides it, in the sense of the 2 seasons Liverpool fall short to Man City, they never beat them in the league those years. They draw to them and they lose to them. And it's like, you look back at the end of the season and people say it was unlucky, but then I look at it and think, well, you didn't
never beat the team.
Yeah, you never took full points off your direct rivals when you had 2 opportunities to do so. So how can you expect others to do that? So
very rational of you, Belinder.
They've already lost to Arsenal at the Emirates, and they drew to Arsenal at Anfield, which is a really disappointing result, I think, in hindsight. Well, no, even at the time I felt it. You draw to the City at the Etihad, which I think was a massive result for where we were at that point in the season. And I think if you win at Anfield, it has to be a win. I don't think a draw is enough. You win at Anfield, that for me is enough where you can now go on to win it. And I will say, I am going to say Liverpool still, because you know what? I'm a Liverpool fan, if you can't tell. And look, Klopp's leaving at the end of this season, and I don't know how many more title races we might be in with him not here. So it might be the last one for a while, and if it is, I'm just going to say it now. Yeah, I hope they do it, and I'm going to say Liverpool will do it just because of magic and passion and things like coming back against Barcelona 4-0 are just stupid football stories with magic. So this might be another one.
Love it. I'm also backing De Zerbi's Liverpool to get in the title race next year. We'll see. Boringly, I've said it from the get-go. I'm a very stubborn man.
You're actually going to say Man City?
I think Man City win it, yeah. I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be less than 5 points potentially between all 3 teams, but I think City are going to win it.
No one wants City to win it, though, let's face it.
The only time I haven't backed City in the last 5 years, I was wrong.
Yeah.
No, that must mean I was wrong. Anyway, yeah, the time that Liverpool won, I
so
didn't.
So do you think even if Liverpool were to win against them today, that you would still be pretty confident backing City?
I'd still be confident, yeah. Depending on how the game goes, I think there's also just the manner of a win as well. Yeah. I think if it's a really dominant win from Liverpool, which personally I don't see happening, then that does sway me. But even if Liverpool win, I don't think it changes it too much in my personal opinion. I just think City have easier games in my opinion in April and May.
Yeah, I must say, like in May they definitely do. Like it's like Arsenal have to go to Man United on the penultimate day of the season, which, you know, they may well win at Old Trafford, but it's still a tough place to go. Like
it turns into a huge game for Man United, spoiling Arsenal's potential.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like the atmosphere
will be Liverpool and Man City though,
will be electric.
It's horrible day for a Man United fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's all horrible, really. But to be honest, I just, as a football fan, I'm just bored of seeing Man City win the league. To be honest,
I get it.
I would want if it's out of the 3, it would have to be Arsenal, wouldn't it? It would be the least painful. But yeah, and like we were saying, like Liverpool have Spurs at home, we'll have West Ham away, then Spurs at home, then Villa away before that, Wolves on the last day of the season. Everton away is going to be somewhere in there, isn't it? To be fair, like Man City's game in hand is Brighton. Like don't know when that's going to be. Not game in hand, sorry, like unscheduled game. But yeah, they do have the easiest like final run in, but it's just like whether they can get through these next 3 games. Which they definitely have the toughest month ahead of them. It probably will define the season.
Absolutely huge. Guys, as you can tell, there are a lot of arguments for every single team. I think that you can make a good case for anyone. Guys, who do you think is going to win the league? And explain why in the comments down below. As Mikey said, that Brentford game, I really hope Arsenal win that actually, because it'd be good. Yeah. Be good for the competition. You know, we want this to carry on for as long as possible. Good for this video as well. Definitely good for this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Massive props to Belinder for coming down and filming and imparting her, I was going to say Liverpool wisdom, Premier League wisdom on us all. A pleasure as always, Belinder.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you on Monday. Bye-bye.